I'm Mark Callahan, Mr. Saltwater Tank, coming to you on behalf of SaltwaterAquarium.com, and this is Mr. Saltwater Tank, RUF, Raw, Uncut, First Impressions, the show where I call it as I see it and show you my first impressions about a product. Products where I haven't done any research on them. I'm simply opening them up and telling you what I think about it. Today, we're talking about the Ecotech Marine Radion G6. Okay, my first thought is, how is this different than a G5? It's got the same buttons on the top, the same form factor. The LED layout looks the same. There may be a little something different here with these two. Okay, so what's different? Now, if I stop the show there and was like, oh, I don't know what's different, that would be a huge disservice to you guys and girls as a viewer. So I'm gonna take a little tack here. I'm gonna pause the video, do some research, because this thing's gotta be different. I know Ecotech, and come back to you with my thoughts once I've done some background work on this fixture. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, did some research on the G6. I'm gonna talk to you about my first impressions off the research that I did. And I'm gonna say this is a technical product. Like lighting is arguably the most technical thing that you're gonna do with your tank. This isn't just a pump that you plug in and go, oh, I guess it works. This is gonna grow coral under your tank. You're gonna wanna get different spectrums based on your taste. So I'm gonna do a second video on the light, put one over my tank, get some par values, give you some feedback on this thing. But right now, I'm gonna give you my first impressions off of the press release, what I know of the G6. A couple things jumped out at me. Number one, this has wider optics, 126 degrees, and Ecotech says this thing will light a 4-foot wide tank. One of these, like this, would light a 4-foot wide tank, which me, owning a 4-foot wide tank over here, very exciting to me. Because one of the things I was thinking about when I was building this system is, it's 4 feet wide, which at the time, it's like I needed maybe 2 Radions or 2 Skies to get the job done because the tank is so wide. With this thing, Ecotech says, nope, one of these things will light your tank end to end. Now, let me put a disclaimer on this because I don't want people to get the wrong impression. When you're thinking about lighting your tank, you're not gonna wanna get even par at the very top and the very edge of your tank. You don't need 200 par or even, let's say, 500 par right at the edge of the tank because no one grows coral right here on your tank. Most of the part you're gonna want down in the tank where your aquascape is. And most of us have the aquascape a little bit off your tank. Now, that's not saying that light that spreads, like Ecotech says the G6 does, is not important. It is important to me because if I get light off towards the edges of the tank, that means it's gonna be bouncing off the glass. It's gonna get up under corals and help fill in those shadows, because back in the day when Ecotech and a lot of LEDs first came into the market, there was lots of shadowing. That was one of the reasons that people put T5s next to their LEDs, because they wanted to fill in that light. With these wider optics on the LEDs now and on the G6, look, this is starting to go away. So that's really cool to see. And I'm really curious to see what kind of lighting can I get down at the corners of my tank on the sand bed. Because remember, up here at the top, on the top edges, no one grow corals there. So I like the idea of a wider optics. The other thing is, both of the fixtures, the Ecotech Marine Radion G6 Blue and the Pro, have shifted their spectrum more towards the blue end of things, which is what most reefers like. And it's starting to get down into the under 400 nanometers, which is where the UV is. Now, is UV helpful for your reef tank or not? That's a whole other topic for another video. There's lots of debate about that. The point is, things are getting more blue, and Ecotech has actually taken out the cyan and the green LEDs on this thing. So this is a bluer type of light. Now, for those of you who have the Pro fixture, it's not as blue. So let me talk about that for just a minute. Pro fixture or the Ecotech Marine Radion Blue, which one do you like? Well, I say, look, if you're an SPS head, you really want that blues, you want as much blue as you can possibly put in your tank, then you're gonna go the blue route. For most people that like a balanced type of light, which is me, by the way, then I'm gonna go for the Pro type of fixture. Either one are gonna get the job done. It's just gonna depend on your taste. So the Pro is getting rid of some of those cool whites, getting rid of some of those warm whites, going to a cool white type of LED. This just means it's going to give a more balanced look. For most people, you're probably not going to notice that. You don't know what you're looking at. I've looked at enough tanks. I'm going to notice the coral rendering, how colors look in the coral because of it. So that's something that I noted. Now, one thing that I did notice in the press release that I thought was really cool to see is if you have a G5, you can upgrade to a G6 without having to buy a whole new fixture. There's actually an upgrade path. And something else that's really cool is if, let's say you had a G5 Blue and you're like, nah, it's all right, I wish I got a Pro. If you do the upgrade path, you can switch which type of fixture you had. Or if you had a Pro and you're like, I really want that blue now that I'm more of an SPS head, then you can go from an Ecotech Marine Radion G5 Pro to a blue. So you can switch models in that upgrade path. It's cool to see that the company is offering a way to upgrade the fixture without having to completely replace the fixture. So that's good to see as well. My final thought on the G6 is, if you have a G5, am I going to switch over to a G6? That's a good question. My initial thought is probably not. Look, for some people who really want the most light that they can get out of their fixture in terms of spectrum, they really want that blue, yes, you're probably going to be making the upgrade. For most of us, if you have the G5 and you're like, should I upgrade to the G6? If you do, you might be able to see the difference, but it's not like your tank's going to go from pretty successful to super successful. Now that doesn't mean that this fixture isn't good. I think it's cool to see what Ecotech did with it. It just means for most people who make the G5 to G6 bump, it's not going to be a knock your socks off, blow yourself out of the water because all of a sudden everything is super different. Now if you're going from a G4 or a G3 to a G6, I don't see the reason to go to a G5. Go ahead and go all the way up to a G6. So that's my first impressions on the Ecotech Marine Radion G6. I'm now going to put this thing over my tank, take some power readings, get a look at this thing, see how the corals colors on my corals render, because this, as I said at the top of the hour, look, this is a complex type of product. If I just talked about it, looking at it like this, I wouldn't be doing it justice, and I wouldn't be doing you justice either as a viewer. So, first impressions of the Ecotech Marine Radion G6, there you have it. I'm Mark Cowan, Mr. Saltwater Tank, coming to you on behalf of SaltwaterAquarium.com. Let's go light this thing up. I'll catch you in the next episode.